Today, we're unpacking one of the most incredible corporate success stories in modern history. We're going to see exactly how a tiny, struggling repair shop, operating out of a literal bomb-damaged building, transformed into a $100 billion global behemoth. You know, if you've ever owned a piece of electronics, played a video game, or watched a superhero movie, you've interacted with this empire. But how did a dangerously defective rice cooker actually pave the way for all of that? I know, it sounds completely absurd, but as we're about to see in this explainer, Sony's story is essentially a corporate hero's journey. It's a total masterclass in pivoting from absolute, catastrophic failure to achieving worldwide dominance.
Section 1. From Ruins to Radios.
To really understand this empire, we have to look at the founders, Akio Morita and Masaru Ibuka. After World War II, a firebombed Tokyo actually forged their relentless drive. They wanted to build a company where engineers could create technology that improved everyday life, but they had to move blisteringly fast just to survive. I mean, think about it. In 1945, Tokyo is in ruins. Just 1 year later, they officially incorporate what would become Sony, though back then it had a much clunkier name. And by 1952, they make a massive pivot, securing the license for a revolutionary new US technology, the Transistor. But bridging that gap from 1946 to 1952, yeah, that was anything but smooth.
Which brings us to the infamous rice cooker. Their first real product attempt was an utter disaster. It either drastically undercooked the rice, actually, it was worse. It either left you with raw grains or burned it to an absolute crisp. But this dangerous initial failure forced them into a corner and they had to pivot. During the war, the Japanese government had actually sabotaged civilian radios, basically cutting their wires to stop them from picking up foreign signals. Seeing a huge market need, our founders started a radio repair service. This kept the lights on, built their reputation, and provided that crucial lifeline that kept the entire business afloat.
Moving right along to Section 2, the hardware revolution. After the war, co-founder Akio Morita took a trip abroad and realized the rest of the world saw made-in-Japan goods, things like cheap paper umbrellas, basically as trash. He felt this deep, piercing shame and made it his personal mission to elevate Japanese hardware on the global stage. To do that, and to take their new transistor technology worldwide, they needed a brand name anyone, anywhere could pronounce. So they open a dictionary and find sonus, the Latin word for sound. Then they combine it with sunny, which was American slang for a bright young man. Put them together, and you get Sony. It was catchy, international, and perfectly captured their global ambition.
95%. Let that sink in for a second. When Sony began mass-producing these new transistor radios, a staggering 95% of the transistors were defective. This was a true do-or-die moment. The defect rate was so incredibly high, it nearly bankrupted them on the spot, forcing them to take out a highly risky bank loan just to keep the business breathing.
So what did they do? Well, they persisted. They cracked the manufacturing process and created the TR-63, marketing it as the world's first pocket-sized transistor radio. There was just one tiny problem. It was actually a little too big to fit into a standard shirt pocket, so they used this brilliantly sneaky marketing tactic. Sony literally manufactured custom shirts with extra-large pockets just for their salesmen. During demonstrations, the radio slipped right in. No problem. The TR-63 became a massive hit, putting Sony on the map and setting the foundation for the $100 billion expansion we see today.
This early hardware success allowed them to tackle much bigger fish, specifically color television. Early color TVs were dim, they were blurry. Masaru Ibuka insisted on engineering a solution entirely from scratch. At first, almost every single unit had these weird visual defects, and they had to be sold at half cost just to get rid of them. It looked like a catastrophic failure, but Masaru absolutely refused to give up. He pushed his team to reimagine color TV completely, and the result was the Trinitron. It was brighter, sharper, and so premium it sold a staggering 290 million units and actually won an Emmy Award.
Okay, let's dive into Section 3, pivoting to entertainment.
Having conquered hardware and proven that made in Japan now meant premium quality, Sony realized something huge. Hardware alone wasn't enough. They needed to control the content. And the brutal format war between Betamax and VHS is exactly why. See, Sony invented the Betamax, this revolutionary video cassette recorder with superior image quality. But then a competitor introduced VHS. Even though Betamax was technically the better product, VHS won the war. Why? Because consumers ultimately prioritized a cheaper price and 4 times the storage capacity over pure visual quality. Sony lost millions in this battle, and it stung.
Bleeding money from that Betamax failure, Akio Morita made an audacious gamble.
He wanted to build a portable cassette player you could listen to with headphones. Everyone inside Sony thought it was a terrible idea. At the time, in Japanese culture, deafness was heavily stigmatized, and wearing headphones in public was considered shameful. But Akio Morita staked his entire career on the Walkman. He famously declared, "If it doesn't sell over 30,000 units, I'll quit." Well, he definitely won that bet. The Walkman became a total cultural phenomenon, selling over 385 million units and fundamentally changing how the world interacted with music.
This hardware success paved the way for a massive financial juggernaut. We're talking about the CD snowball effect. Sony partnered with Philips to create the compact disc. Suddenly, look at this. They were earning royalties on the CDs their label produced, royalties from partner manufacturers, profits from selling the hardware CD players themselves, and massive sales from the exclusive music actually pressed on the discs. It was a self-feeding revenue machine that generated so much cash it fueled their multi-billion-dollar expansion, allowing them to just outright purchase CBS Records for $2 billion.
Next up, Section 4, Winning the Console Wars.
So Sony was now an entertainment powerhouse, right? This naturally set the stage for their next massive pivot, this time into video games. They initially partnered with Nintendo to build a CD-based add-on for the Super Nintendo, but Nintendo started getting suspicious that Sony might use this tech to launch their own competing console. So, in the ultimate betrayal, Nintendo publicly announced they were abandoning Sony to work with Philips, which is just wild because that's the very company Sony had created the CD with. It was a shocking public humiliation. But the irony here is that Nintendo's paranoia actually forced Sony to create their own worst enemy.
Furious at the betrayal, Sony pushed forward and launched the original PlayStation. Because Sony used their superior CD format, games were vastly cheaper and easier to develop, attracting almost 8,000 games to the system. Meanwhile, Nintendo stuck to expensive, limited cartridges for the N64, resulting in only about 400 games. Sony's massive CD resources completely crushed Nintendo in this era, leading to over 100 million PlayStations sold. They literally won the console war by leveraging the exact technology Nintendo rejected.
That brings us to Section 5, the Spider-Man steal.
Having conquered games, Sony continued spreading its wings by purchasing Columbia Pictures. Fast forward to 1998, and a bankrupt Marvel desperately needed cash. Sony swooped in and paid a ridiculously low, rock-bottom price of just $7 million for the exclusive movie rights to Spider-Man.
Now check this out. That single character acquisition generated an astonishing $9 billion in asset value and box office revenue over the years. A $7 million investment into a $9 billion return. To put that into perspective, it is one of the most profitable bets in entertainment history, and it became another absolutely critical pillar of their $100 billion expansion.
But wait, it actually gets crazier. Marvel was so desperate for cash back then, they actually offered Sony the film rights to their entire catalog. I mean, Iron Man, Thor, Black Panther, the whole shebang, for just $25 million. Sony executives literally declined the offer, stating that nobody cared about the other Marvel characters outside of Spider-Man. Wow. It is a staggering missed opportunity that serves as a great reminder. Even a brilliantly run billion-dollar empire can make completely blind miscalculations.
Finally, Section 6, a resilient 100 billion empire.
Now, despite some missed opportunities along the way, Sony's massive diversification insulated them against devastating modern threats. In 2014, Sony Pictures faced an unprecedented cyber attack. Employees turned on their computers to see an ominous message from a group calling themselves Guardians of Peace. The hackers stole terabytes of confidential data, unreleased movies, and highly sensitive emails. The FBI and the Obama administration formally linked the attack to North Korea, citing retaliation for the Sony comedy film The Interview. It was an incredibly brutal, very public, and humiliating blow to their movie division.
But here's the thing. A hit to one division couldn't sink the ship anymore, entirely because of the sheer, mind-boggling scale of their expansion. This isn't just an electronics company anymore. Today, Sony is a $100 billion empire operating massive divisions in life insurance, banking, biotechnology, and robotics. When one stream faces a massive downturn, the others just keep the empire thriving.
It really is an incredible journey, isn't it? From Masaru and Akio fixing government-sabotaged radios in the literal ashes of post-war Tokyo to a global corporation that is currently out there developing advanced robots and electric cars. They've faced massive failures, fierce corporate betrayals, and devastating hacks, but that relentless drive to innovate has never stopped. Which leaves us with one final, pretty exciting question to think about. With their hands in so many different pieces of the future, what industry will Sony disrupt next? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.